4 years ago in November 2020, Monster Rancher 2, or more accurately Monster Farm 2, the Japanese version, had recently been ported to the Switch and to mobile devices. The Monster Rancher scene was booming and emulator-hosted tournaments were happening multiple times a week. This is the most popular the scene had been in decades, basically since the game came out. I'd been running the Monster Rancher Battle League for a few months at this point and decided it was time to start making videos to help find like-minded individuals who weren't aware of the scene's existence. I downloaded Premiere and revved up my high-octane coma patient impression, and I started piecing together what would be the first Rancher rundown. With 4 years of retrospect, it was pretty ambitious for someone with no video editing experience, and while I don't feel like I accomplished anything monumental when it was released, as viewership numbers had no problem reinforcing, it was the first step in this journey I've been on with this channel. I've actually had my channel for years and years, but it was mostly for sharing private clips with friends and stuff like that. And there was also like a desperate attempt at getting people I knew IRL involved in Monster Rancher that no one's ever going to see the videos for. But I felt like it'd be fun to do an updated version of my very first video to fix some small errors and omissions, to de-Eeyore-ify the voiceover, and to celebrate 4 years of being able to share the game I love with everyone. This isn't a deep dive into every single system and mechanic the game has to offer, but if you ever want to know why your monsters keep dying earlier than you'd like, then this is the video for you. Because if you ever played Monster Rancher 2, I'm sure you've struggled with it at some point. The game is obtuse, and it never holds your hand. And even after you think you're on the right track and you raise a strong monster, well... It was also one of the first games of this type to deal with some pretty interesting topics, like... death. Your guy's dead. That's a bummer. Monster Rancher 2 can be extremely taxing and frustrating. It's a difficult game, but consider the following. It's not.
Welcome to the real world! Time to learn! You gonna learn today!
Monster Rancher 2 and the series in general is known for its sim-like mechanics and its hidden systems. The design philosophy of the game is much more akin to raising a pet or coaching a boxer or a monkey puncher than it is to other more popular monster raising games it gets compared to, like Pokemon and Digimon. There are some similarities with Digimon World 1, but that's about it. It's kind of like an unbelievably complicated Tamagotchi. So why is it difficult? Well, simply put, it's only difficult because you play video games like a small baby. As a small baby, you have no concept of responsibility, or scheduling, or diet, or commerce, or math, or having to go buy groceries, but all these are important ideas in the Monster Rancher 2 world. You play games to have fun, and the world of Monster Rancher 2 is an unflinching place that asks if you're willing to do some chores, if it in turn means unlocking what makes the game truly special. Throughout the Rancher Rundown video series, I have, and I hope I will continue to, help you quit playing like a small baby, and instead play like a... You can play like a large man. Monster Rancher 2 is a complex game, but what makes it complex is a series of very simple concepts that are easy to learn on their own, and that's probably why you're here. We'll be touching on the basics to help get you through the game and start building habits that will help you get the most out of the game, or even set you on the path to becoming a force in the competitive scene. First, we gotta talk about lifespans. Each monster has their own lifespan, ranging from 350 to 600 total weeks in the original PSX version of the game, and uniformly 100 less in DX, the version we're all currently playing on, available for Steam and Switch. This chart shows the total possible lifespan of each monster main breed. Crossbred monsters mix their two breed lifespans at a 60-40 ratio, meaning if we take a Monol, which has a lifespan of 250 in DX, and combine it with a Golem, who has a lifespan of 350, we get an Obelisk, who has a lifespan of 290. Look at there, there's the math. But in addition to the lifespan, each monster has a life type. You've probably noticed that your monster grows in size and gets better stat gains over time, until they reach old age, and then their stats tank completely. The gains are gone. The amount of time a monster spends in childhood, adulthood, and old age is not uniform though. In addition to having a specific lifespan, each monster spends a specific amount of time at each stage of their life. These discrepancies are called life types, and they're governed entirely by your monster's subbreed. There are 4 life types, and they follow these patterns. Type 1 is the normal life type. It progresses fairly uniformly and has no real surprises. For all monsters, each step in the life stage denotes an increase in stat gains until you reach subprime, which is where your stats start falling off again. Type 2 monsters, called precocious, have an extremely short childhood and a very, very long old age. The pros of this life type are that you hit prime extremely early on and have to spend less time screwing around with garbage stats in baby life. These monsters are great for making money because the long old age means you get to spend a ton of time farming tournaments for cash. The major con to this life type is that their prime is also fairly short, so your time to cash in on maximum stat gains is also really limited. Additionally, this life type doesn't lend itself to drug training, which is a concept I've talked about in other videos. Type 3 monsters, called late bloomers, are the opposite of Type 2. They have an aggravatingly long childhood and they deteriorate comically quickly in old age. Because of how much of their lives are spent in childhood gains, this type of monster is a bit more idiot-proof than some others. You can afford to make more early life mistakes without worrying too much about your monster dying early or missing out on solid stat gains. They also spend a decent amount of their life in the main stat raising stages. The downside is that if you're not playing with drugs, late bloomers are excruciatingly slow to develop, and it's not unheard of to have a monster be like over 2 years old and have stats equal to the average C-rank monster. Because Monster Rancher is mostly a math simulator where your brain gets happy when big number go up and gets unhappy when big number not go up, this makes it the least enjoyable type of monster for a lot of people. They also can't really take advantage of having spent most of their life building up stats to farm tournaments later on, because their prime happens so late in their lifespan and then they just instantly careen off a cliff.
He's going over that cliff!
Type 4 is called the Sustainable type and is far and away the most rare in the game. Mew and Undine cannot actually even combine with anything else as a subbreed, and Ducking can only combine with one other monster, Beaklon, as a sub. The rarest type is, appropriately, the strongest type. It has an extremely short childhood, then it spends about 65% of its life between adolescence and subprime, meaning for more than half its life it has great stat gains. It shares this distinction with Type 3, but the difference is that it also has a decent amount of life left in old age, so you can capitalize on those gains pretty easily. This type takes the best parts of all the other types and mashes them together to make a monster that hits good stat gains early, so you can see a big number go up and get that dopamine hit, and it also gives you a chance to make bank later. All life types are workable and the game isn't really difficult enough to make any single life type particularly bad. Some monsters become harder than others to raise casually because of this, but it shouldn't be too big of a deal most of the time. Chances are, if you've only ever played the game casually, that these lifespan numbers I'm talking about seem incredibly high. A mono living almost 8 years? I must be a scoundrel to try and defend that. You played the game, you know it's not attainable, you're very smart and I'm a big liar. Also, I have more than 30,000 gold on this file, so I must be cheating. Congrats, you're correct.
Congratulations! Congratulations!
Mostly. And wrong about the cheating. Monsters lose lifespan every time a number goes up on what's called the Lifespan Index, or LI for short. And even the best laid plans have to factor in LI hits as an unavoidable part of life on the ranch. If you raise your monster in an extremely conservative way, your monster can live up to their maximum, but that's not much fun, and it ignores huge parts of gameplay. So we're trying to avoid that. Monster Rancher has a million hidden mechanics that it tries to obfuscate for want of being a simulation, with seemingly unknowable consequences, but the truth is nearly everything in the game is mathematically solved. And the Life Index in particular has been known about since shortly after the game's release, 20 years ago. God, 24 years ago now. Your monster has a meter for fatigue and a meter for stress that are hidden at all times but are tantamount to understanding what you should do with your monster and when. LI equals your monster's fatigue plus 2 times their stress. If this value exceeds 70, congratulations. You're a bad parent and your monster has lost a week lifespan. This is considered a life index of 1. There are additional breakpoints that result in more lost weeks of life as well. This caps if your monster hits more than 270 fatigue plus 2 times stress for a whopping 8 weeks lost in a single week of gameplay. This may seem extreme and prohibitive, and that's because, well, it is. It's incredibly hard to hit the 8 weeks lost LI breakpoint during normal gameplay, and your monster will probably run away or get sick even before it hits this cap. For most normal gameplay stuff, you can expect to cap out around 3 weeks lost unless you're trying to ruin your monster's lifespan on purpose. Now that we know stress and fatigue must be avoided, well, how do we do that? This is where that bit about grocery shopping I alluded to earlier comes in. It's actually part of the game. It wasn't just a bad joke. It was a bad joke, but it wasn't just that. There are a few training methods that have been developed over the years to minimize the amount of stress and fatigue your monster accumulates, but the most straightforward and realistically the only one you ever have to worry about if you're not doing some weird gimmick works like this. It's the beginning of the month. It's time to feed your monster. What to pick? There are so many choices. Tablets. Just tablets. There's never a reason not to feed your monster tablets. Even if they don't like tablets, you should just feed them tablets. Why? Because math. Doesn't matter what your monster likes or dislikes for the most part. It just so happens that tablets, in conjunction with other items, allows you to train every single week without resting. No other food comes close to this level of stress reduction, and we know how important stress management is now, so feed your monster tablets. Next, you need to feed your monster an item. On week 1 of the no rest method, you feed your monster a nuts oil. Nuts oil reduces fatigue, meaning at the beginning of each month you get to lower your stress with tablets, and you get to lower your fatigue with nuts oil. After you give your monster the nuts oil, you then choose a heavy drill that best suits whatever stats you're trying to raise. The small stat loss on a heavy drill is dwarfed by its gains and should be seen as a massive net positive. I know people who casually don't like doing heavy drills because, they don't want to lose any stats at all, but you want to do heavy drills as often as possible. Week 2 is a recovery week in a sense. You want to feed your monster mint leaves to reduce its stress, and then do a light drill to give your monster a bit of a break. Can't be all hard drills all the time, unfortunately. And that's basically it. You now rinse and repeat these 2 weeks over and over again until you get bored and play another game instead. And as you can see, this perfectly keeps a monster's life index in check, and it never hits the first breakpoint of 70. While after the first cycle you won't hit 0 for both stress and fatigue again, it stabilizes itself and you don't have to worry about it too much. Now, while tablets are great, if your monster doesn't like them, this pattern will slowly descend into chaos. With only -10 stress reduction each month, the pattern falls apart after 2 cycles, and you hit your first life index threshold. You'll continue to go over the mark if you continue on like this, but luckily in DX, Gemini Pots actually do the job they're supposed to do. You see, in the original PSX version of the game, each Gemini Pot reduced your stress at the end of a month by 3%. But since the integer got rounded down, it meant that before 33 stress, you got 0 reduction. They were basically completely useless. Now they reduce stress floored at 1, meaning stacking Gemini Pots is an easy way to remove all the stress your monster accumulates at the end of each month. Having 10 pots basically is a failsafe for every monster, regardless of how they feel about tablets. But if you got a case of the donkey brains like I do, and you're playing on Steam right now, you can use Lexi's Advanced Viewer. It's a standalone app that plugs all the numbers in for you so you can go back to mindlessly pressing the X button and drooling until your controller breaks.
But wait, there's more.
If your monster has Hanger, Arrowhead, or Durahan as either their main or subbreed, they, for some reason, also get a benefit of -20% stress for nuts oil, meaning that they can use the normal no-rest method without you having to worry about how they feel about tablets at all. Hate them? Sucks to be you. Should have thought of that before having superior genes. There's no rhyme or reason for these 3 monsters working this way. The game is full of weird code, so we don't even know if it's on purpose or not. People have fan theories about why these specific monsters but no others would like nuts oil more, but it's just speculation. Be sure to comment with the rationale you're 100% certain is correct despite having nothing more than a gut feeling to go on about, and we can argue about it some more there. The no-rest method is great, and you're going to be able to max out your monster real quick, but stats aren't the only answer. You'll need better and stronger techniques beyond the basics your monster is born with if you actually want to beat the game. Errantry is where you send your monster to get new attacks. In the original PSX version of the game, you took a huge lifespan hit here from a bug counting your life index number twice, which could potentially limit the number of trips you got to take. It's not important in DX though, because it's been fixed. Errantry is basically a 4-week tracking mission where your monster is dropped off in the local wilderness and attacks innocent wildlife in the name of hunting down a wild monster as they cosplay Dog the Bounty Hunter, and you have no real interaction with them until they're done. Their stats will raise every week they successfully complete whatever excursion they're on, and every week they have a chance to learn a new technique. They can learn these if they meet specific stat requirements, or if they've used other techniques enough times, or even if they're just good or evil enough. You should check out the Errantry calculator on legendcup.com for more info. That thing's great. Even like 20 odd years in, I still use it every day I'm playing. And regardless of performance, whether they succeed or fail, they'll accumulate stress and fatigue every week they're away. This results in an unavoidable LI hit, though it's not crazy. To get rid of this LI loss as quickly as possible, make sure you only send your monster on Errantry on the first week of a month, and then follow the normal no-rest method on return, substituting the week 1 heavy drill for a rest. By week 2, you're back in shape. But Errantry is not the only excursion the monster can go on. A new bug got introduced in DX, and it deals with expeditions. 3 times a year, as long as you're famous enough, explorers will visit the ranch and ask you to accompany them on a mission. This is how you unlock a ton of the secret monsters in the game, and it's also great for farming money. The bug here is that for the month your monster is away, they technically age, but they don't actually lose weeks of lifespan. If your monster is 1 year old when they left on the expedition, they'll return at 1 year and 1 month old, but will not have actually lost those 4 weeks of lifespan they were away. Your monster is always exhausted once they return, so you lose 1 week of lifespan for the new month, plus 1 week for the LI, meaning your monster only loses 2 weeks of lifespan when they're away. And this is a huge boon for the next thing we're going to talk about. Peaches are imperative if you want your monster to live a long time. Golden peaches increase your lifespan by 48 weeks, which is 1 full year, and they can be found on the Pari Pari expedition with Cavaro. You need at least 300 intelligence to find a peach, though you should probably aim for more, and you can find multiple on each trip, though any given monster can only eat 1 gold peach. If you really want to max out your monster's lifespan though, you'll also want to feed them a silver peach, which acts the same way, and adds 6 months, 24 weeks, which you can only get from the Elder's Cup. The Elder's Cup takes place on the second week of June and only has one requirement. Your monster must be at least 6 years and 3 months old. This is kind of a pain for most monsters in DX to hit, even through like really careful optimal play, so you can abuse the expedition bug with a dedicated monster that you only take out of the freezer to go on expeditions to hit this 6 year and 3 month requirement in realistically only about 4.5 years or so. You can use this monster to farm the Elder's Cup every year and set up a pretty simple game loop to keep all your future monsters healthy and living longer. Peaches roll back your monster's remaining weeks by 48 and 24 respectively, meaning it's possible to revert to an earlier life stage. What this means is that it's best to feed them 48 and 24 weeks after you enter Prime, which will roll you back to the beginning of Prime and allow for even crazier stat gains, which of course will help you win tournaments. There's also some like niche competitive reasons you would feed a monster a peach on the week they're born, but we're not going to get into that right now. But we're still talking about single player, so let's talk about the single player tournaments. Tournaments in this game cause an egregious lifespan hit, so it's best to have a plan in mind when you're entering them. If you enter a tournament, you lose 3 times your life index in addition to the week you lost just for being alive, floored at 3, meaning that even if you enter a battle with no stress or fatigue, you will lose 4 weeks of lifespan total. Battling late in life can actually be a very cost-efficient way to raise your stats, as high-ranking tournaments can give you tons of gains that far exceed what you could be getting training as a senior citizen, so, it's not all doom and gloom. And also, you make money from it. Battling also affects your stress and fatigue, the former positively and the latter negatively. So entering tournaments can actually be a good way to progress through the game and also keep your lifespan somewhat in check. There's a lot of math that goes into the fatigue gain and stress loss for battling, but as long as you're not playing the game like a complete deviant, you can expect to have a lot of your stress washed away, if not all of it. A nuts oil before and after the tournament will also usually get rid of all your fatigue, meaning it's especially easy to fit this into the no rest method if you do the battle on a week you would normally feed your monster a mint leaf, i.e. the 4th week, i.e. official tournaments. After learning all this, people usually see battles and errantry as especially anxiety inducing now, oh no, I'm killing my monster. But you should think of your monster's lifespan as a resource that you spend to accomplish everything you want to in game. If you enjoy doing extra battles, then you should just do them because it's fun, and that's the point of the game. Getting new techs is also a lot of fun. It's a small tax to keep the game relatively challenging. You shouldn't look at it as a punishment. And that's about it. These tips will keep your monster alive long past the expiration date and make the game a lot more manageable. If you were struggling as a kid and you're finally replaying the game after a lot of time away, even just loosely following this video, like when you remember to, will help you get way further than you were able to before. 4 years, man. It's been a lot of fun, and I'm not slowing down yet. I mean, I've slowed down already. I've slowed down a little bit, but I'm not stopping yet. The Baku video is coming out soon, and then I've still got 10 more monsters to cover after that. But I'm also doing my yearly big Not a Monster Rancher video soon, or maybe not soon. Both the Meg Cargo and Dragon Quest Monsters videos took months, and this new one probably won't be any different. But until then, I hope the last 4 years have treated you as well as they've treated me, massive pandemic notwithstanding, and I'll see you in the next one.